be ready to go here shortly. We got like 2 minutes
So
before it's official. Yeah, five would be good. Yeah, that'd be great.
We're just getting the video set up. This is a live broadcast on the internet, the World Wide Webs.
Good? Yeah, I'm good. All right. Awesome. You on the ladder, dude? I've got the steps to it. Yeah, if I can get high. Okay, yeah.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're so glad that you're here on behalf of the Traditional Voices Group, nonprofit whose mission is to collect, document, preserve cultural traditions around here in the Topeka River Valley. I want to welcome you to the first event of the 10th Annual Riddle Fest. Of course, Riddle Fest honors the memory of Leslie Riddle, the Yancey County native who helped give birth to country music as we sort of know it by his work with A.T. Carter and the Carter family. And this afternoon we're going to begin with our lecture series, seminar on the traditional musician as historian. And I would like to begin by thanking support from the North Carolina Humanities Council. Is there anybody here from that council? We would love to have, but one of these days they probably still are looking for Burnsville, but that's okay. Anyway, and of course, whenever you do something like this, there has to be a survey to show how wonderful it is. If you are so inclined that you can go online, there's a link on the website, SurveyMonkey link. Those people who said, "What did you just say?" Yes, I said SurveyMonkey. You can do that and take the survey. For those who are less inclined, we will have a paper survey that's real quick, real fast, that we will be passing out at the end of the seminar. We'd love for you to do that. No, that is the, thank you. That is the Traditional Voices Group website. Okay? And I guess it would be easily found. Right, Conrad? I think so.
Traditionalvoicesgroup.com.
There we go. Traditionalvoicesgroup.com. And before also we begin, we have the second event of Riddle Fest is tonight at 7 o'clock here on the stage, featuring the music of David Holt, who you will hear from in just a minute, and Josh Goforth. That is tonight at 7 o'clock here. Tickets are $20. You can find one of these little name tags on someone around here. We can direct you to tickets if you've not purchased your tickets for tonight's concert.
As he was the very first country music person to record back in 1922, July of 1922. He recorded 6.
Glad to be here. In the prospectus of this workshop, it said, for years folklorists and historians were discouraged from learning and playing the music they studied. In the 1960s, this began to change with musicians like Mike Seeger, Gus Meade, Jabbour, and others. And most of those guys weren't trained folklorists, they were just great musicians and super interested in the music. We'll explore what the musician brings to an understanding and preservation of traditional music. And one of the people preserving and doing so much today is Roy Andrade. Tell us about how you got here.
So yeah, I grew up here in Nashville, just down the road. But my dad was from Ecuador. A little place called Cuenca in the southern part of Ecuador. We're first generation Appalachians. And I grew up playing the accordion. My dad was a semi-professional accordion player. He played 1 week out of the year professionally on a cruise boat. I think it was the Carnival Cruise Line. He would kind of get ready all year for it. He'd go They'd supply a band, you wear all white patent shoes, a white belt, and this black accordion. That was kind of a striking thing. Mostly he played music for fun, just for himself and for me. I remember him hauling me down to the basement where he had a cork-lined room, cork floor, cork ceiling, all the walls cork, so that he wouldn't bug my mom when he played his accordion. But there was a day bed down there, and he would carry. I remember him carrying me down when I was young enough to be carried, and just laying me on that day bed, and to watch him rehearse. And then a look would come over him that you'd never see it any other time in his life. So I got way into the accordion at a young age and played through school. I remember being kind of paraded around at Jones Elementary School, Hill Street Middle School. They would take me from class to class, Roy the accordion player. I loved it. Until at some point, somebody told me it wasn't cool. It never occurred to me. I've been playing this thing for 8 years by the time I was, 12. Well, around this time, my dad comes home from work. He was a professor at UNCA. This is probably 1981, I think. He comes home with 2 LPs, right, of his student, this guy named David Holt. And he was excited. I remember I was sitting in the living room chair when he came in, and he had both of them. He handed me one. This is my student. He was so proud. And the record player was right behind me. They were vinyl bars. And that was the moment that I first heard old time banjo music. Yeah. So this is really cool that we're here to talk about this. And really kind of the matter at hand. Let me finish telling my trajectory real quick. So I heard the music, it kind of registered. I went through my teens. When I found out the accordion wasn't cool, I pretty much
kind of played a little bit, but took up strings, and made my way through kind of finger-picking guitar and folk singing kind of stuff, and some electric guitar. And by my late teens, I was playing bluegrass music, which kind of led me into old-time music. So I came into this music around 20 years old. I was just in time to spend some time with people who had learned to play this music before records and radio had a big influence, right? Records and radio created stars. Once you could hear what was happening in Nashville and Chicago, these old country musicians got excited about the possibilities, and things started changing. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a thing. But I recognized that early on, something that David recognized back in the 70s, that there's a lot of value in learning this music from people who have come about it from within their families and their communities. It's a hard thing to find anymore, right? So I kind of see myself in this whole story as kind of a bridge between David's generation, who had access to lots and lots of folks, like Robertson. I mean, you knew all these people, right? Yeah. I was too late for almost all of them. I knew Ralph.
Ralph Stanley?
Yeah, Ralph Stanley. But now, in my position, just fast forward, when I was in my late 20s, I joined this band, Real Time Travelers, formed this band, and we had this big adventure for 7 years. Reconnected with David on the road out in Oregon. And after that, so kind of the entertainment side of things, but after that, just by happenstance, I found myself at the university in Johnson City at ETSU teaching bass, an instrument I barely played. But Raymond McLean, the director there, he believed in my music and I guess my sensibilities, something. And that grew into, I've been there 11 years now, and now I'm kind of there to stay, made it through the tenure track, and now I'm like on the team.
But mention that it's a program.
It is. It's a bluegrass, old time, and country music studies.
Major?
We developed the first major in traditional music in American traditional music in the world. Just 40 miles as the crow flies. Last semester we had 48 string bands of students, right? So I have this cool perspective of seeing young people as they come in and how they're oriented, especially people who are interested in old time music. Bluegrass is well taken care of, right? Bluegrass is healthy, I think, and it's probably half of our program. a quarter of our program, the part I'm over, is old-time music. And so this matter of musicians as historians is something I think about a whole lot, and something I'm looking forward to talking about today with you guys. Hopefully later on, maybe this will pique your interest. You look like an inquisitive bunch, and we can talk a little bit. But there's a little thumbnail of where I'm coming from. And I'll just add to that, you know, in the Real-Time Travelers, I was playing only banjo. And I was kind of learning on the road with this band. I didn't feel like I was good enough to be like, you know, didn't you have to be like Bela Fleck level to make a living, you know? But, you know, I was working up music and playing old-time music for a slightly different purpose than I do now, that I spend most of my time playing fiddle. I'm not thinking about the stage as much. That's not part of the filter for me. So I really like thinking about these things, and my experience is always shifting, and then always sort of filtered through the university, and the teaching is part of my life as a musician, you know. So I'll stop there for now.
Wow, that's great, Roy. Roy Andrade. So I came into it sort of in a backwards way. We had bones playing in my family growing up in Texas. I'll tell about that tonight. My great-great-grandfather played rhythm bones. Let's see, I think I got some here. Well, we'll just do a wooden one and a bone one. So this was something that was passed down in my family for 5 generations we knew about. Just an odd thing. He was from Alamance County, North Carolina, and lots of Holts down there. And he moved to Texas right before the Civil War, taking the bones with him. And so every male in my family had to learn to play the bones growing up. And that was just an odd thing. These guys were not musicians. They're lawyers and doctors and like that. But it was just on Christmas they would get out the bones, and everybody, you know, jingle bells, jingle. And it was just a curious thing to me, because I wasn't too much interested in the music of the day, which was the early 50s. It was stuff like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window and that kind of stuff. But I really loved the sound of the bones. And I think it was like 16 Tons that really got my ear tuned to another kind of music. But when I was 21, actually I'll make this quick, but I got jumped and total random act of violence, beat up and left for dead. Almost died. Saw the orange light and all that stuff. And when I came back to myself, I was about 21 years old, and this had happened, when this had happened. And I realized that if you want to do something in life, buddy, you better do it now, because death isn't this thing way over there, far away from you. It's like right here, and you can step through it in a heartbeat. And so for some reason, I remember one of the teachers at the school where I was teaching, where these guys beat me up, he had a collection of old 78s, and he had Carl Sandburg, and he had Carl Sprague. He loved cowboy music. And I understood that the old Carl Sprague, who was the first guy to record any kind of country western music, any kind of cowboy music, he had recorded in 1929, was still alive in Bryan, Texas. Well, this was 1960s, mid-60s. And so I went back to Bryan, Texas, and met him. And he was so nice. I mean, he showed me how to play the harmonica in the cowboy style, which I still... Yeah, which I still do. You know, most harmonica you hear nowadays is bluesy, but cowboy style is like... And so I was just so excited after that day with him that you could actually, if you kept your heroes local, you could actually go see them. And that got me really fired up, and I wanted to do more, but I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't a folklorist or anything. And I was going to college at UC Santa Barbara, and a friend of mine was a banjo player, and he said, well, I hear there's a whole bunch of people that play clawhammer banjo back in the Southern Mountains. So in 1969, we came back here for the first time, my friend Steve Keith and I, and he was a pretty good clawhammer banjo player, and it just sort of like opened up. People would just throw open the door, come stay a week with us. You know, they hadn't heard clawhammer in years. Their grandparents had played it. So that made me want to learn to play the clawhammer banjo. I came here in '69 with Steve, and then came a couple more times till I graduated from college, and just told my future wife, I said, that's where I'm going. you better come with me and look at it because I think it's a pretty great place. And moved here in 1973. And, you know, I had children shortly after that. So all of a sudden, I was like forced to make a living. And I knew I couldn't get good enough starting as late as I had in life. I would have to give all my energy to it. I have to be a professional musician and try to be. And so I started, you know, doing little jobs around Asheville and playing little church socials and stuff like that. And finally, it just kept on building and still building in a nice way. So I come at it as an entertainer, using traditional music as like so many of the people I learned from, Roy Acuff and Wade Maynor and Doc Watson. You know, it doesn't have to be corny entertainment. It just has to be good, and it has to reach out to a modern audience. And so that's where I'm coming from, which is a little different than what Roy is doing, especially with his students. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, so I kind of mentioned this idea of myself and folks of my generation is kind of a bridge between David's generation and the new generation, one younger than me, maybe 1.5.
Can I butt in here and just say something? Let's just interrupt each other if we need to,
Yeah.
because just to make the story clear. So people that are my age, I'm 70 now, got a chance to meet some of the greats of this music because these were people born in the 1800s, many of them, and they were still alive when we were around. And so it was this very profound relationship with the folks. And we'll show you some pictures of these other pictures in just a minute, but I just want to say that.
Right. So kind of a question that permeates my life and did when I first got into this music and probably does even more now that I'm thinking about young people, ushering them in to traditional music. When I say traditional music, I'm referring to old-time music. I'm really not talking about bluegrass as much. That's a whole other can of worms discussion, the differences and the similarities. But I'm talking about old-time music, the stuff that came before bluegrass. And this question is, how do you learn this music now if you don't have access to these folks, right? It's an important question in my life because I take it really seriously, and I want to do right by these students. And you know, one thing that David and I, you know, a place where we meet, I think we meet on a lot of things. We have a lot of similar ideas on things, but the idea of studying source recordings, right? And I want you to think about this as I'm talking, because if you have some input, ideas, I'm always open. I've been doing this 10 years, and I feel like, you know, summertime is my downtime. I'm always kind of going back to kind of a clean slate, rethinking this thing. But what I've come up with is a way of teaching this music in an institution, under the fluorescent lights often, is ushering students through original recordings from before the Great Depression. Because not only are they recordings that were made by people who learned to play before records and radio, but they're also great documents of the regionality of this music. You know, the way people played in Burnsville, North Carolina, played the banjo, was a little different back in the 19th century than they were playing up in the Tri-Cities. Up where I'm living now in Johnson City, they would pick up on their melody note instead of down like David was doing. In some areas, they played more clawhammer banjo than finger picking. In some areas, they would play two-finger banjo instead of three-finger banjo. And if you didn't have a radio or any other reference point, people would tend to learn from themselves and from one another in communities, and you get this thing called a regional style that would develop, right? So I'm trying to guide my students through the study of this music primarily through source recordings as a way to learn the music itself, as a way to learn the context around the music. Where did it come from? What kind of lives did people live that were playing it? What was the music around that geographic area? Those kind of things. I tell my students too, you're spending an hour or two with us every week. What we do here can't really take the place of the social component of the music, which is probably the most important by far. But to engage in this as a serious-minded kind of study, we found that it works year after year. And you know, David and I were talking about this week. Sometimes I get pushback from my students, like, why can't I study a David Holt record? or a Real-Time Travelers record or a Bruce Molsky record? Why does it have to be this weird collection from Kentucky or from Knoxville or Johnson City or Bristol? It's an interesting question, to which I normally say, well, I think you should listen to everybody. Like myself, as I was learning banjo, I was taking in 78 recordings. I had a David Holt video. I had a Brad Leftwich video. I was going to Clifftop, going everywhere I could, anything I could take in, right? I recommend this for our students, but at the university, let's have a focused, methodical approach. And your textbook is this collection of recordings from wherever, right?
Would it help if I was dead? Will I be cool then?
It might be cool. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, so there's a lot of issues around this that we think about a lot and kind of have fun talking about, but it's a very different day for young old-time musicians in America now, and you know, how do you learn? Is it enough to go to Clifftop and just learn from your buddies? How can that be bad? Of course it's not bad, it's great. But is there something missing from that process, you know? And that's what we like to think about, and that's kind of at the heart of what we're talking about today.
Let's show the pictures and play, and then you show the recordings that you guys did. So Philip, you're almost on. So luckily, I love photography from early on, and took pictures of a lot of these folks. And in some ways, I think the pictures may be some of the most important stuff I've done. Hopefully the video, TV shows and stuff will be around a long time too, but I think when I was taking these pictures, I wanted to capture something at that precise moment. They were all done with black and white film, and I had very little money, so I'd just take 2 shots because I couldn't afford to take a roll of pictures like people do, you know, digital. You just had to like it's the Cartier-Bresson thing of the perfect moment, you know. And so hopefully I got some of that in some of these. What are we gonna play? Forkadeer. Low part first. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more question, and then you do your thing. One more question, and then you do your thing. Any questions so far? You might want to know about anything. Okay. Roy has got some wonderful recordings, and how you guys have been going about learning and what it means.
Let me run over here to my laptop. All right. I just want to show you, we've got a little technological limitation here. I just want to show you a couple little pictures of what you're about to hear. This is one of my string bands. This is about a year ago. Recording on wax. A wax cylinder. It's actually not wax, it's soap.
It's what?
Soap.
Really?
5% wax, 95% soap. Sort of take a bath with it, doesn't smell very good. It's like, it's soap.
Wow.
This is Martin Fisher. He's from Middle Tennessee State University. He brought the rig up with the idea that we would record 3 or 4 cylinders, but things went so well that we recorded 28 songs that day. We had the time of our life. I'll just show you a couple pictures.
You can still buy the cylinders, the blank cylinders?
Well, they're extremely expensive, but you can get the old ones and you can shave them down.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's actually, if you do a bad take, you can take one of these, just like a razor blade. It just takes just enough off that you get a clean slate again. Great. Here we are kind of listening back. It was a great day, super fun. So I'm about to play you a few recordings of this particular group. I just wanted you to see that there. You can tell where it was just delightful. We listened to so much of the music that was, made on cylinders and on early wax discs, that to actually have a chance to record and listen back was just great. Everybody wanted it. There's Martin. Okay, so I'll play you a couple of recordings.
So these would be called acoustic recordings. These were not electrified at all, right?
Right.
Oh, man.
You record into the horn, and the horn is also the playback machine. Okay, is this DI good to go? So I just want to talk about a matter that hasn't come up yet, and that is this idea of imitation, learning this music through mimicry and imitation. And David and I have talked a lot about this too. One way, there's lots of ways to learn music, but one thing we kind of advocated at the university is while you're here for your 4 years, let's try to really understand with our hands, with our instruments, what was going on in this music as an exercise. No one wants to sound just like anyone else, and really, even if you did, it's impossible. Just like you could never sing like Frank Sinatra as hard as you tried, right? You can't sound like somebody else. But the process of trying to sound like somebody else is, or to paint like somebody else, or to do any kind of craft or art, teaches you a lot. And that's kind of what we do. And I want to just play you a couple examples of this, and then play you the wax cylinders. If you want to sound old, if you want to sound like these old guys, record on a really old medium, record it on wax. You can't tell the difference. Okay. So here's the source recording. Are we good to go? This happened 1929 in Knoxville.
The lights in the ballroom were flashing.
Pay attention to this next chord change.
All the dancers were happy and gay, except one young man and his sweetheart. Or they quarreled and parted that day. One more dance and the ball will be over. Home Sweet Home is the tune they will play. At the first strain of music, She rushed to his side, and she heard him softly say,
You gotta hear this chorus.
won't you waltz home, sweet home with me, for old time's sake?
Whew, gives me chills every time. Okay.
And who was that now?
So that's a Ballard cross. So another educational thing here. Any piece of old music here, there's so much to learn. Ballard cross was actually Hugh Cross, really? Who had recorded he was under contract with Columbia. That was a Vocalion recording there. If you were under contract with one record company, you couldn't record for other ones. So so what people did was just change their name, right? He's a Hugh Cross. He became Ballard Cross. But he was a big deal. He played with the Skillet Lickers and other folks around that time. So here's what we did with it. And right off the bat, when I told you to notice the chord change, this is a conversation that came up in class. Like there's something that sounds dissonant about that. Why would we do that? You'll hear what I mean. It should stay on the 1 chord, but he goes to the 5. May have been a mistake. We'll never know. But what I tell him is, let's do it like this just to see. What if this guy did mean to do it? Let's see what it feels like. They left it. Maybe they couldn't afford another cylinder. Maybe they had ground down enough of the wax that this was the last chance. But here's what we did with it. Trying to sound a lot like this. I mean, Christy, the singer, she's a champion yodeler when she was 10 years old in North Dakota. She's already a professional level singer. So I don't really try to tamper with her style, but we really try to glean as much musically as we can from this. Here's what the professional digital recording sounded like. Wait.
The studio recording.
This is the studio recording.
Okay.
Lights in the ballroom were flashing.
Here's the chord right here.
All the dancers were happy and gay, except one young man and his sweetheart, for they quarreled and they parted that day. One more dance and the ball will be over. Home sweet home is the tune they will play. At the first strain of music, she rushed to his side, and she heard him softly say, won't you waltz home, sweet home with me, for old time's sake, to see you in
Everybody's swaying. I can see you.
another's arms.
Isn't that nice? Right? So, yeah. But that's what we try to do. We take this old material and we're trying to learn from it in a very detailed and nuanced way, but we're also honoring the fact that we're all, like David said, we're modern musicians playing for modern audiences. You can't deny your musical life up until this moment, right? It all makes its way in there. But the process of trying to listen closely and find out really how this piece of music worked. A number of differences. The source recording is a solo recording. We sped it up. We changed the key. We put an intro, hung an intro on the beginning of it. Things like that. We could sit here all day. I love talking about this stuff, but we don't have time to sit here all day. So let me play you the wax recording.
Of the students.
Of the students. Same exact band, 2 months later, during that session you saw the pictures of.
Lights in the ballroom were flashing. happy day. Except one young man and his heart, for they quarreled and they parted that day.
Now, would you believe that was, could I have passed it off as an old recording?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, one more example, just with different singers so you could sing. So the source recording, this was a semester that we focused only on the Knoxville sessions, which happened in 1929 and 1930. So the other thing I'll do is confine it. This world, if you've ever seen the discography of country music records before 1942, it's that thick. Yeah. Tens of thousands of songs. So somebody just getting into this music, it can be very overwhelming. Where do you start? So we confine it and to collections. We cut and dice it all sorts of ways. But this is another one from the Knoxville sessions called Dixie Deer. And let me make this point too. Mythbusters. That last tune was professionally written in Tin Pan Alley, right? Not all these old time songs came down, through the mountain streams. And it's all valid. But that song was written, as is this next one, in a little alley on 45th Street in Manhattan called Tin Pan Alley. Called that because to walk down, you'd hear pianos just clanging, people writing songs, trying to sell them on sheet music, right? So professionally written songs played by, hillbilly artists. That was their term, not mine. Here we go. Source recording, yeah. This is the Gibbs Brothers with Claude Davis.
Kiss me, tell me that you miss me when I'm gone away. When I come back, Dixie dear, hope I'll find you waiting here. I'd be so lonely, for you are my only. Goodbye, my Dixie dear. Gone fields are snowy white.
I love that guy's voice. Okay, and here's what we did with it. Wait. Here it is. 1, 2, 3. Kept the tempo the same. Added banjo, bass, fiddle.
Goodbye, Dixie dear, goodbye. I have nothing more to say. Kiss me, sweetheart, kiss me, tell me that you miss me when I'm gone away. When I come back, Dixie dear, hope I'll find you waiting here. For I've been so lonely, for you are my only. So goodbye, my Dixie dear. Cotton fields of snowy white.
All right. And then just a minute of the wax. Let's fast forward to the singing real quick. Right there was something that we learned. Just that one little note makes that whole sequence. We had to keep that. A casual listen, you would hear bum bum ba dum dum ba dum bum ba dum bum, but it's not that. That last time through, there's a little kind of you feel it, you know.
Sing it again.
Well, I could play it. Bum bum ba da bum ba da bum ba bum da da da. Just a little half step, a little juicy. It's just kind of getting poked in the side a little bit, you know. That's worth keeping. That stuff is worth keeping, I think, you know. So here's what the singing sounds like.
Goodbye, Dixie dear, goodbye. I have nothing more to say. Kiss me, sweetheart, kiss me, tell me that you miss me when I'm gone away.
Now that could pass for 20s music, right? Yeah, stylistically, but that's not the point. We're not trying to get there. If we were, like I said, we could use a recording medium that would fool people, but I'm interested in the process and what they can take from that process of close listening, close study, some understanding of the context around the music. Who are these artists? Where did they come from? Where did the song come from? What did it mean at that time? What does it mean now?
Can I tell you a story about that?
Yeah.
For me? Because I do the same thing. If I could learn from the person, I'm going to learn from the person. I mean, they don't give you lessons, but, you know, you record it, you watch them, you figure it out, you come up with your own version. But people like Uncle Dave Macon, who I would love to have met, but he died in 1956, so couldn't. I study his recordings because he's a wonderful banjo player, great entertainer, and so there's this one recording that he did called Whoop 'em Up Cindy. Probably Josh and I will do that tonight. And in the recording, he's playing the banjo. He was very good with the banjo, and he could flip it all around and all kinds of things. He was dancing. I'd never heard that before. That is so cool. I have got to learn how to do this. Now, I was out in California at the time. Didn't have anybody to talk to or anything about it. And so I worked up the banjo part. You know, spent a year just working up the and then I worked on the clogging part because I learned how to clog when I came back here to Asheville. And then I slowly was able to put those two things together and play them together. And it's about, I guess, 10 years later, when I was working on the Nashville network, I heard that Sid Harkreader, Uncle Dave's fiddle player, was still alive. And I said, oh, great, I really want to talk to him. So I called him up, and I asked him, you know, Sid, now, on that song, Whoop 'em Up Cindy, is Uncle Dave dancing standing up, or where I'd read he's dancing sitting down like the French-Canadian guys do? He said, that wasn't Uncle Dave dancing. That was Sam McGee tapping on the top of the guitar. But I did learn a skill. Any questions about any of this so far? Yes. Please.
Last couple of years, maybe 2.5 years, I've started to learn thumb style playing.
Yeah.
I listen a lot to Etta Baker and Elizabeth Cotton and Doc Watts. Then I started listening to Merle Travis, these professional musicians like Merle Travis
Yeah.
and Chet Atkins. It's just fascinating to. I also listen to Mississippi John Hurt. Anyway, the difference between these folks that weren't thinking about it as professionals and the folks like Travis and Chet Atkins that were. It's just fascinating to sort of compare the difference. And a lot of times I end up feeling like there's a lot more that the folks that weren't doing it professionally have somehow more to say. Or something, I wouldn't say more or less, but it's just the difference is fascinating to me as someone who's studying those styles.
Yeah, they had a power. They weren't trying to shuck and jive and sell it. They just were playing it, you know?
And Merle Travis and Chet Atkins were amazing players.
Yeah.
And you can hear where they got that stuff. But essentially what I'm saying is the difference between a professional and someone who was just doing it for,
Yeah.
for providing music, for dancing, or for just entertainment, but not to go on the radio or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's been fascinating to compare the differences. I try to develop my own style and think, wait a second, I don't have to get that fancy.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? Anything else? Any other questions?
I just have to make a comment. I wondered when you were working with your source music and your early recordings, when I played that for young, I do it for teenagers, you know, I have to sort of prepare them for the quality of the recording and let them know you've got to
Well, we talk about that from day one, as you know, the art of listening through the scratches. Yeah, you got to learn to hear through that, and I think our brains will also fill in the gaps. Sometimes we hear things that aren't really there. That's happened to me over the years, lots of times. When I go back to a piece of music I learned a long time ago.
Yeah, that's true.
And all these years later, my hearing has gotten keener and keener. A friend and mentor of mine in San Francisco, Jody Stecker, somebody we both know, and somebody who's taught me a lot about this music. He's kind of like he doesn't really think of the music in professional terms. He'll play on stages, but really it's a personal and private sort of endeavor. But we talk about music all the time and trade things. He hears layers deeper than I can. Even now, after doing this for all these years, because he's been doing it for 30 years longer. It's a very real thing to how you hear patterns, how you hear relationships, and I love that. I love the idea that you continually are learning and honing your skills and sharpening your skills, not just these skills.
Actually, for me, listening to those cylinders, the newly recorded cylinders, I realized that I'm hooked on that scratchy sound. I mean, that's part of the music to me at this point, because I'd never heard a modern person play through a cylinder. That's quite remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It sort of gets in your, and digital recording is so sparkly. I don't know if any of you are kind of vinyl holdouts. I guess vinyl's making a comeback, but if you do have a vinyl player at home, the difference between acoustic and digital is tremendous, really.
I want to say a little bit about taking a tune and making it your own. I had a very interesting example of that with when I made my first record with Doc and Merle. It was 1985, and I told them what tunes I wanted to record. One of them was, if you've ever seen the Folkways show, the theme song of that show is Forked Deer. And Doc said, I never learned Forked Deer, but I'll just back you up on it. And that's what that recording was from. And I said, I'm going to record the Cuckoo on this record. He said, I've recorded that 1,000,000 times. He said, why don't you come up with your own version? Now, Doc never told you what to do. He never said, play this chord, unless it was way off or something. He would just say, he would never say anything, really. Just play it the way you feel it. But he said, why don't you come up with your own version of the Cuckoo? Now, the Cuckoo is a pretty special tune because it's got an odd tuning. And a very odd lick. And it was recorded by Clarence Ashley back in 1929. And that's where Doc learned it from. He actually learned it from Clarence, and it went something like this. And then it didn't have any chords from there on. It just went, oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird, and she warbles as she flies, and she never hollers cuckoo till the 4th day of July. So that was Doc's version of it, and he was saying, come up with another version. I said, well, maybe that would be interesting if you actually put chords to it, harmonize it in some way. So here's what we came up with, and here's what we recorded. Even this front lick is a little different. There's just one thing, it's been a puzzle since the day that time began. Man's love for his woman and her sweet love for him. Oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird, and she warbles as she flies, and she never hollers cuckoo till the 4th day of July. two different approaches of, you know, I think we both agree on this. This is a living music. It's not just a historical thing that we're playing like some old museum piece. This is a music that's still evolving, and it has always evolved. It's never been static. There was the minstrel shows that got added to it. There was the vaudeville that got added to it. There was the blues that got added to it, and that's constantly changing, and it's still changing today. So, don't you agree?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
sure.
Yeah.
You bet.
We're just about out of time.
While we're on,
Yeah, we got 4
about that
minutes.
for a minute, or?
Sure. Anybody got any other questions before we jump anyplace else? Yeah.
How did you find out where to go to interview?
To find these people? So, do you know where Sodom, North Carolina is? So, in those days, people didn't really know where Sodom was. But I saw a poster in a store. It was just like festival in Sodom. I said to my wife, we got to go check that out. It was set. The poster was for that weekend, and it was Saturday afternoon, or it was Sunday morning, and I realized, oh man, we've already missed the first 2 days. So we go out there, and there's Evelyn Ramsey standing at home plate in the little ball field. Nobody out there but Sheila K. Adams in the audience and her friend. And there had been a knifing the night before, so nobody came back the next day. But Sheila is my age, and so I sat down and started talking to her, and we became friends like that afternoon. And she said, you need to go meet my great aunt, Deli Norton. And so she took me up to meet Deli, and then from Deli to Kaz, and it's a web of people. And we would tell each other, well, you need to go see this guy if you want to learn the harmonica, something like that. So it was that way. It's pretty easy to, once you find the network, it spreads out pretty fast. The hard part is taking the time to go do it. Yeah, because you're always busy,
Like I said earlier, I got lucky and got tuned into this just in time to do quite a bit of field work myself. And one tactic I used was the barbershop is a great place in small little towns. In Sneedville, Tennessee, I went to the barbershop there and just started asking. Everyone wants to talk about music. Everyone wants to talk about a guitar player or a banjo picker. And when I first moved back I spent some time out west. That worked well for me. I would just pull into these towns that had cool names or that were especially remote, and see what I could find.
Yeah. Yes.
The bones, being from the bone family, what are the bones made out of? I know you have a bone.
Yeah. So any kind of wood, my favorite actually is pine because it's not too loud. But the bones themselves, these are the rib bones from a cow. A cow rib is about that long, and you just cut out part of it that's not too thick. And you can see they sort of wear out and fall apart over the years. But I like the bones the best because they're kind of warm sounding. I did some, but we have the bones that, in fact, there's an exhibit of my stuff at Earl Scruggs Museum starting in this month, the 28th. And they've got the old family bones that have been passed down. We had 4 pairs, actually, that J.O. Holt had made. Pardon me? Where is the museum? Oh, it's a great museum. It's in Shelby, North Carolina, Earl Scruggs Museum. And they have my photographs and I want to see if I could find that.
Do you know how long the show will be going there?
Yeah, till January.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. So there's my dad playing one of those pairs of old bones. And here's the great-great-grandfather. Look at that dude. I would love to have known him. He was obviously didn't take any crap. We're just about out of time, but anything else anybody want to know? I hope you can come tonight. Josh and I will be doing our versions of these old mountain tunes. I would like to ask one question of you about the bluegrass and the old time. So you feel like, I would say in general when people ask me how's the music doing, I say it's doing good because there's a lot of kids interested in the technique, but that's mainly bluegrass.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel old time is doing at this point?
Well, it's interesting. think about this for a minute. The kids in America who are learning music from their family, from their dad, from their uncle, from their grandfather, from whoever, or from within their community, the vast majority of them are learning bluegrass music.
Yeah.
Right? We have kids coming, I mean, they're virtuosic at age, 17 or 18.
Yeah.
So
Not so much with old time?
The state of old time music, it's interesting. Most of our students, we do have them trickle in, coming to us just to play old time music, but just as much or maybe more, they're defecting from one of the other kind of musics that we teach. They come there wanting to teach bluegrass, kind of see what we're up to. They're into the idea of studying, of reading about the music, of listening closely, a more deliberate, less kind of stage-centric approach, even though we do perform. So then let me just make one other point, and then I'd like to hear your question. I don't know what this means, the fact that very few people are learning old-time music today from within their families. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? Very few people, young people come about it later. That is not as true in this part of the country, of anywhere. Asheville is a bit of an epicenter. So I think people of David's generation, their kids are starting to learn the music, right? And it's great. So that's happening. It's kind of a different thread, But I think about that a lot too. If people are coming to old time music later in their life, like I did, like most everybody I know did, what does that mean? Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it's I'm thinking too hard about it. But the people that are learning this in a folk way, like the folk process, are playing bluegrass predominantly. Let me get he had his hand up, sorry.
I'm a children's musician professionally, and I travel to a lot of different schools, and elementary school mostly, and the kids just absolutely love it. And one day, one little girl said, "Have you ever heard of a man named David Holt?" Well, yes, I have.
Oh, that's
well,
neat.
You sound like him.
That's cool.
Anyway, the young kids just go crazy. It's banjo, harmonica, guitar, and spoons, and the kids just absolutely love it.
They do, yeah.
Just about everybody has a David Holt story. It's true. What
I was just going to say, I listened to Lyle Lovett recently, and I could see not only the influence of the old-timey stuff on what he's doing, but maybe he's even a bridge for younger people to lead into the old-timey stuff.
He's saying Lyle Lovett may be a bridge to lead into old time music.
Interesting. Never thought about that.
Yeah, I knew either.
I sure like Lyle Lovett.
For whatever it's worth, and this may be non-representative, we were in Asheville yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and there were like 3 groups on different corners, busking sort of thing, and all of them were doing old-timey.
Yeah.
I just thought that.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, it's,
I would say it happens in Asheville more than anywhere else in America. I pretty much could say, I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, we have this pretty strong old time community.
Yeah. Portland, Oregon is another kind of hot spot. Was there
Anything else?
Another hand somewhere?
Yes.
You all talk about bluegrass and old time. What is the true difference in?
The repertoire is really the difference, the way the instruments are played is another difference. But if you really want to sum it up, the bluegrass has to have a 3-finger style banjo, which you didn't hear that today. Well, but you played some 3-finger, but Earl Scruggs style banjo, fiddle, mandolin, bass, and guitar, and usually high harmony singing. Old time could be anything from like these old people I used to know in Black Mountain that played on panpipes, gospel tunes on panpipes they made. So from to piano, I mean, it could be anything that includes the old traditional music. Would you say something
Sure.
different?
That book I talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Just commercially recorded country music, old-time music, for the first 20 years of recording technology. There's an index in there. And the index is of all the instruments that were used in those tens of thousands, right? Guess how many different instruments used to play old-time music? 80.
Wow, that's a lot.
And like David said, bluegrass operates on 5 instruments, sometimes a 6th. if just a quick visual representation, if you imagine a tree, old time music is like all the roots and the big trunk, right? The roots in Africa, the roots in the British Isles, the roots in children's music and sacred music and gospel music, all this stuff coming together, kind of making this stout trunk. If you go on up the tree a little bit, bluegrass is like a stout branch shooting off. I don't see that there's any other way to look at it. It's part of the same thing. Bluegrass is old-time music. But old-time, you can't say it the other way. Would you?
Well, I would say bluegrass is mountain music, and so we call it mountain. I mean, it's played in the Piedmont too, but and so is old-time. So it's under this sort of roots level.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to your question, another important difference between old-time music and bluegrass, when we're really getting into the music, bluegrass musicians tend to go like this. Old-time musicians are more.
Okay, everybody practice now. Thank you for coming out here today. Hope to see you tonight. And if you don't know about the new TV show that I have, I hope you get to see it. It's on UNC TV. It's called David Holt's State of Music. It was on last night at 9:30. It'll be on. You can go to UNC TV and see it as well online. But it's called David Holt's State of Music, and man, it's so well done by. Yeah, it's Will and Denny, the producers. They just did a great job. 9:30 on Thursdays.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much, David and Roy. All right, I want to remind you again, if you will pick up your survey, if you want to do the paper ones, Ellen will be very close by to show you those, or you can go on SurveyMonkey. Hope to see everyone tonight at 7 o'clock. We have tickets available, and you can see a little bit, and Josh Goforth will join David for the night's concert. Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.